Hi, welcome back to Kalike, where we are solving entrance exam numericals at the moment. So we continue our journey where we take up specifically Coulomb's law numericals and numericals related to electric force. For a change, today we are also going to include some surface charge density numericals. We haven't touched them yet. Obviously, we have to pick them up even from the textbook because the textbook numericals are pending as well, which will be our next choice after the theory. But then for today, we'll continue with these interesting numericals. I hope you enjoy solving them with me. Let's get started without wasting any time. Two charges placed in air, okay, they are placed in air, repel each other by a force of 10 to the power of minus 4 Newton. So it is specifically given they are separated in air. So you know K 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught is 9 into 10 to the power of 9, and the force by which they repel each other is given to be 10 to the power of minus 4 Newton. When oil is introduced between the charges, now that space which was filled with air between the charges is now being filled with oil. So they're introducing some oil with certain density which is unknown. Then the force becomes, okay, there is a change in the force. So you saw it was just 1 into 10 to the power of minus 4. Now it is 2.5 into 10 to the power of minus 5 Newton. The dielectric constant of oil is, now those who have attended or those who have seen my theory videos or those who know by studying it elsewhere, they know that there is a certain relationship that gives you the relationship between the dielectric constant and the force in the medium to force in the vacuum. So if you do not know, this is the formula. So the reveal is the dielectric constant is given by force in vacuum or air to force in that medium. So what is the medium here? Force in that medium. The medium is oil here. So that will give you the dielectric constant of the oil. So what will be the dielectric constant of the oil? Force in vacuum is given to be 10 to the power of minus 4 Newton. Force in the medium, which is oil, is given to be 2.5 into 10 to the power of minus 5 Newton. So here let's use our thumb rule and simplify this decimal. I want to shift the decimal place to the right. I am shifting only one decimal place. So what happens to the power of 10? So this I will retain as such. So this becomes 25. I have moved the decimal place to the right. So 10 to the power of, when you shift the decimal to the right, the power of 10 decreases. By how much? When I say decreases, I have to introduce a minus sign. By how much? By one decimal. We are moving it by one decimal. So I have to write 10 to the power of minus 1 into 10 to the power of minus 5. So what will this become? It will become 10 to the power of minus 4 whole divided by, okay, let's write it closer, 10 power minus 4 whole divided by 25 into minus 1 minus 5 will be 10 to the power of minus 6. Now let me bring this up. Minus 6, when it goes up, it becomes plus 6. So plus 6 and minus 4 is 2. 10 power 2. 10 power 2 can be written as 100 whole divided by 25. Now how much is 25? 100 divided by 25? 25 times 1 and 25 times 4. So what is the dielectric constant of the medium, which is oil? It is 4.0 or just 4. So the dielectric constant is found to be 4 very clearly, and you have the answer here. So if you know the thumb rule, if you know how to shift the decimals, the problems can be solved within a couple of minutes. Hardly you require 6 to 7 seconds, and that time can be utilized for some other difficult numerical as usual. So here's another very interesting numerical which can be solved in a matter of few seconds. So there are 2 point charges placed at a certain distance r in air which exert a force F on each other. Okay, fair enough. It is very simple. There are 2 charges Q1 and Q2 separated by a distance r, and they are exerting a force F on each other. So what will be your expression for force? In that case, the expression for force will be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by the distance of separation is r square. Now what is that is changing? Then the distance r dash. So the distance is changed from r to r dash, at which these charges will exert the same force in a medium. So in a medium of dielectric constant K. So the medium as well as the distance are different in the second scenario, but even then when you change the medium and the distance, you see that the force exerted in the second scenario will be same as the force exerted in the first scenario. Let's first write the expression for the second scenario. The new force, where you have the new medium with a dielectric constant K. So you write epsilon naught, epsilon r, since they have mentioned it as this is the relative permittivity, or since they have mentioned it as K, let's take it as K. This is the dielectric constant, new dielectric constant along with epsilon naught, into what were the charges? The charges were Q1 and Q2. What is the new separation? It is R dash whole square. Now both the forces are equal. So if you equate the LHS, you can equate the RHS. So let's equate the RHS part. What is the RHS part here? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 whole divided by R square is equal to, this will be on the RHS. What do you have? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught K. You have a K extra because it has a different medium with a different dielectric constant. Q1 Q2 and it's not R anymore, it is R dash square. So let's cancel the common terms. 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 Q1 Q2, it all get cancelled. What are you left with? You are left with 1 by R square here. 1 by R square should be equal to, what are you left with on this side? 1 divided by K into R dash square. Okay. So you have to figure out the relationship, right? What is then the distance R dash? You need to write an expression for R dash. So what I will do is I'll bring R dash on this side, cross multiply just R dash here. So what will happen? R dash the whole square is equal to, let's send R square this side, R square divided by K. Let's take square root on both sides. If you take square root on this and square root on this, so R dash whole square, square and root gets cancelled. You are left with R dash. Now this gets cancelled. So you have R, but root remains for K. So this is your new distance, which is the original distance divided by the square root of the dielectric constant of the medium. Sometimes what happens after finding this relationship, you might be given values to complicate the numerical, and then you might have answers as well. But if you have solved such numerical where you already know what is the relationship in such a scenario, you can directly use the numerical. That's where people save a lot of time and crack NEET exam very easily. So this R dash will be R divided by root K, which is option D. As simple as that. It may look difficult, but if you miss understanding that there is a K involved here, then you cannot solve the problem. The problem looks really tough, but it is not. Also, if you look very carefully, you see that R dash is equal to R divided by K. So the new distance, if you want the force to be the same even in a different medium, then the new distance should be less than the original distance, because you have a factor divided by root K. So obviously R dash will be smaller compared to R. It is 1 by root K times R, right? So therefore the original distance, that can be another conceptual question. So what will happen if you want the forces to be the same with such a condition given, where you change the dielectric constant, and what should be the new distance? So the new distance generally decreases compared to the original distance of separation if you want the force between the two charges to remain same. Here's a very interesting numerical that we generally have in electrostatic, where they give you the electrostatic force of repulsion, and to that you have a you take the ratio of a gravitational force of attraction or attraction, right? So Fg and Fe represent gravitational and electrostatic force respectively between electrons. So both are attractive. Here it is a repulsive force because both are electrons. Electrostatic force of repulsion will be it's a repulsive force, whereas gravitational force is always an attractive force. So between the electrons situated at a distance of 10 centimeter, it is given in centimeter. You have to convert this into meters. The ratio of Fg by Fe is of the order of, so it is a very comparatively very simple problem, because you don't have to simplify any whole numbers, except you should know how to shift the decimals and convert that into whole numbers. Use the thumb rule that I have been talking about in all my numericals since I started solving numericals on electrostatics. So you should know that rule, then it is very easy for you to calculate the order of magnitude. Those who do not know might find it difficult. If you do not know, this is your chance to learn. So what is that you are supposed to calculate? The ratio of gravitational force. Let's write it here so that we have some more space. Gravitational force to electrostatic force. How do you write the gravitational force? Gravitational force is gravitational constant into mass of electron into mass of electron, because there are two electrons, right? Divided by the distance of separation, whole divided by, for this you write it as K into what will this be? K into Q1 Q square. It is electron, so E into E, I can write it as E square whole divided by R square. Next is substituting the values and then simplifying it out. R square anyhow gets cancelled. So the distance is given anyway. The distance was given. I mean, if they are separated by the same distance, that doesn't really matter. They do get cancelled. Then the next point is you substitute the values. You should know the basic order of magnitude for the mass of an electron, and the charge on an electron, and also the gravitational constant. So you fail to answer this question if you do not know the standard values. So it's a must that you learn the standard values. Well, now it is, your R square is cancelled. There was no need to convert it into meter at all because it's cancelled. So G into, what do you have? ME the whole square whole divided by K times E square is what is left. We need to know the values. So G is 6.7 into 10 to the power of minus 11. Mass of an electron is 9.1. It is always 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 31 the whole square, whole divided by the value of K, as we know, is 9 into 10 to the power of 9 multiplied by electron. The charge on an electron is 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 the whole square, right? So now shift the decimal to the right. If you shift the decimal to the right, it becomes 67. What will happen to the power of 10 if you shift the decimal to the right? The power of 10 decreases. How do you write it decreases? It is notated or denoted by the minus symbol, showing that the power of 10 decreases. By how much? Since you are shifting one decimal place, it has to be 10 power minus 1 into 10 to the power of minus 11 into 9.1. 9.1 remains as such. You can shift the decimals here as well. So it is 10 to the power of, okay, let's shift the decimals even here. So if I shift the decimals in this place, it will be 9 into, in fact, 91 into 10 to the power of minus 1, because you are shifting one decimal place, power of 10 decreases. You have 9.1 the whole square, so you have one more 91 into 10 to the power of minus 1. Before you multiply this, 31 into 2, 10 to the power of minus 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, so you have 62. It is minus 62 whole divided by 9 into 10 to the power of 9. 1.6, if you shift the decimal, it will be 16 into decimal decreases. Power of 10 decreases by 1 because you shifted one decimal place. It is square, so you get one more 16 into 10 to the power of minus 1 into 19 times 2 is 38. So 10 to the power of minus 38. So now ignore all of this. We don't need to bother these things. We only have to simplify the powers, right? Only be bothered about the powers. Add the powers in the numerator and the denominator, and then do whatever is required to find out the answer. I hope you are able to do it. If not, here's the reveal. So let's do it. Minus 1 minus 11 is minus 12. Minus 12 minus 1 is minus 13. And you have minus 14. So minus 14 minus 62 is going to be minus 76. Okay, in the numerator. So in the numerator, you have 10 to the power of minus 76 whole divided by 9, and then, okay, let's do this. Minus 1 is minus 2, minus 38 is minus 40. Minus 40 and plus 9. When you have minus 40 and plus 9, you get minus 31. So you have 10 to the power of minus 31. So this goes to the numerator, it becomes plus. So you have 10 power minus 76 plus 31. So minus 76 plus 31 would be 6 minus 1 is 5, 7 minus 3 is 4. It is 10 to the power of minus 45 approximately, right? So you have to find the closest value. Minus 21 is not close, 24 is not close, 42 is not close, it is plus 42. So the closest answer that you have is minus 43. So the option is option D. So imagine if we had not converted this as 9.1, if you have approximated it to be just 9, then you would not get these powers of 10. These would have been eradicated. So you would have somewhere ended up between 10 to the power of minus 44, but I did not approximate there. I took it as 91 into 10 to the power of minus 1, but no problem. There's, you could easily figure out what's the right answer. This is how you calculate the order of magnitude. Well, again, a conceptually very interesting numerical here that you must, enjoy solving. There are two particles of equal mass m and charge q. So when they start talking about mass, obviously there will be gravitational force of attraction between any two masses. And when they're talking about charge q, it is the electrostatic force of repulsion, because they don't say plus q and minus q, it has to be a repulsive force, are placed at a distance of 16 centimeter. They do not experience any force. When do they not experience any force? This is a very, very tricky part. When do they not experience any force? When the net force acting on those two particles is zero. Now, when can the net force acting on those two particles is zero? When the gravitational force of attraction equals the electrostatic force of repulsion. If you fail to understand this conceptual point, then you do not you cannot really approach this problem in the right direction. You'll end up with the wrong answer, or you might not even know how to go about it. So that is the first clue that you must catch, that when they do not experience any force, that means the net force acting on those charges is zero. And when is this net force is equal to zero? When the electrostatic force of repulsion is equal to the gravitational force of attraction between the charges and the masses. So what is the ratio of Q by M? So charge to mass ratio is what you're supposed to find out. So this is our first clue point. Let's write it down. Fe is equal to Fg. So what is Fe? Fe is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Q is the charges given. R square, we need not bother about mentioning the, converting or mentioning the distance, because everything is given in terms of expression. You see all the answers, right? So this implies this has to be equal to Fg. How much is Fg? Fg is given by gm square. The masses are same, so m1, m2. Instead of m1, m2, I write it as m square divided by r square. So r square gets cancelled. What are you left with? You are left with q square divided by 4 pi epsilon naught is equal to g m square. Now what will I do? I send 4 pi epsilon naught here and bring m square in this place. So what will happen? This will be q square divided by, I am bringing m square in place of 4 pi epsilon naught. M square is equal to, you already have g, and then you are bringing in 4 pi epsilon naught. Let's rearrange that. It will become 4 pi epsilon naught g, right? Now if I take the root of this, square and root gets cancelled. You get the ratio for q by m. So don't forget to put the root on the other side, because you took the square root on both the sides. So q by m ratio is equal to square root of 4 pi epsilon naught g, which is the answer, option D. So this is the conceptual point that you must know, that is how you approach the problem. Well, here's another very, very conceptual numerical, I must say, when it comes to entrance exams. You might feel sometimes some of the answers might look obvious, but it is really a very these concepts must be very crystal clear. Let's read it out. So if charge q1, there is a charge q1, let's write it out. Charge q1, okay, exert some force on a second charge q2. Okay, it is exerting some force on a second charge q2. There is a force of repulsion, obviously. Now if a third charge q3, okay, there is another third charge q3, what happens to that charge? Is brought near q2. You are bringing it near q2. Okay, so I am bringing it near q2, right? Then the force exerted by q1, on q2, what will happen? Will that affect the force experienced by q2 due to q1? Very simple answer. You have the options. What happens? The force exerted by q1 on q2 increases, or does it decrease, or would it remain the same, or there is another condition, it increases if q3 is of the same size as q1. I mean, they're talking about these three. So these two, if both of them, q1 and q3, has the same sign, they say it is increasing. and it decreases if both of them have this is positive or this is negative, and this is negative or this is positive. I don't think all this we require information we require at all. So what is the force between any two charges given by? The force between any two charges, that is F between these two charges, the force on 2 due to 1, force on the charge 2 due to 1 is simply given by K into Q1 Q2 divided by R square, right? Does it depend on Q3 at all? No, it does not depend on the third charge at all, because the Coulombic law expression is very clear. It only depends upon the two charges involved. So these are the two charges involved. So the force remains the same irrespective of not only Q3, even if you bring hundreds of charges here, the force exerted by Q1 on Q2 or the force experienced by Q2 solely because of Q1 does not alter. So the answer is remains the same. So you can just take it hardly a second. You save almost 59 seconds here if your concepts are crystal clear. So another important numerical where you get to practice the resultant force formula using vectors. It's a equilateral problem. So there are three charges, 1 microcoulomb, minus 1 microcoulomb, 2 microcoulomb. They're all placed in air at the corners of A, B, C. So A, you have 1 microcoulomb. So let's write it. So this is an equilateral triangle. Let's call it as A, and let's call this as B, and let's call this as C. So you have 1 microcoulomb plus 1 microcoulomb minus 1 microcoulomb, okay, and 2 microcoulomb is placed. Okay, let's write it here. 2 microcoulomb is placed here. Okay, respectively of an equilateral triangle of length of side 10 centimeters. Let's keep it this in mind. So length of side 10 centimeter. Let's call it as R. So 10 centimeter is 10 centimeter into, you need to cancel centimeter, convert it into meter. Meter is required in the numerator. So you know 1 meter is equal to 10 to the power of 2 centimeter or 100 centimeter. So centimeter gets cancelled. When this comes in the numerator, you have 10 into 10 to the power of minus 2 meter, right? Now the resultant force on the charge at C. So what will be the resultant force experienced by the charge at C? Now this is positive and this is positive. So due to the charge at A, it will experience a repulsive force in this direction. So force experienced by C due to A is in this direction. So since this is positive and negative, it will experience a same amount of both are equal magnitude, but it will experience an attractive force. So force experienced by C due to B. So what will be the resultant? You have to complete the parallelogram. So this becomes your net force. So this is the F net experienced by C. So what is the formula for in such cases? F net is simply given by square root of force experienced by C due to A the whole square plus force experienced by C due to B the whole square plus 2 into force experienced by C due to A, force experienced by C due to B, cos theta. What is theta? Theta is the angle between these two forces, A and B. So what is this? Equilateral triangle has 60 degree. This is a straight line. So if this is a straight line, this angle has to be 180 minus 60, right? Because this whole angle is 180 degree. If you subtract 60, how much do you get? Theta turns out to be 120 degrees. So what will happen to cos theta? Cos 120 is, cos 120 will be minus half, right? So if you substitute minus half here, 2 and 2 would get cancelled. You would get minus FCA into FCB, which we will do next. Substitute the values, find out how much is FCA and FCB, and then make some approximations and figure the answer out. I'll give you some time and then I'll reveal the answer. Here's the reveal. So let's calculate the force on C due to A. So that is K into charge on A into charge on C whole divided by R square. So K is 9 into 10 to the power of 9. Charge on A is 1 microcoulomb. So 1 into 10 to the power of minus 6. Charge on C was 2 microcoulomb. So 2 into 10 to the power of minus 6 whole divided by R square was 10 into 10 to the power of minus 2 the whole square. Let's simplify this. So you have 9 into 1 into 2. 9 times 2 is 18 into 10 to the power of 9. Minus 6 is minus 12. Minus 12 plus 9 is 10 power minus 3. Whole divided by, you have 10 square, that is 100. 100 can be written as 10 square multiplied by 10 to the power of minus 2 the whole square, 10 to the power of minus 4. What will this become? 18 into, so 10 power minus 3, this is minus 4 plus 2 is minus 2. So 10 power minus 3, when it comes to the numerator, it becomes plus 2, right? I hope you get it, because this part is 10 to the power of minus 4 plus 2 is minus 2. When minus 2 goes to the numerator, it becomes plus 2. Got it? So therefore, it has to be 18 into 10 to the power of minus 1 Newton. You can also write it as 1.8 Newton. Similarly, FCB will also be the same value, because the magnitude of charges and the distance of separation is same. So charge on B and charge on C divided by R square. So K is 9 into 10 to the power of 9 into what is the charge on B? It's again 1 microcoulomb. Charge on C is 2 microcoulomb. It is the same thing. It's just the minus sign. We are not taking the minus sign into account. So the distance of separation is 10 centimeter, or 10 into 10 power minus 2 meter. So you end up with the same answer, which is 18 into 10 to the power of minus 1. Now we need to square these numbers. So this is where we are going to do the approximation. I'll show you in a while. Yep, so here's the reveal. So force on A due to C was found to be 18 into 10 to the power of minus 1. So as force on C due to A and force on C due to B, both were found to be the same. But we need to square them. So how much is FCA whole square, which is also same as FCB whole square, because both the values are same. So if you do know 18 square, which is 324, it is fair enough. If you do not know, let's approximate this in case, but it is essential. I've told you already in my previous video, you need to know the square roots from starting from 2 to 20, right? So but then if you do not know here, let's do the approximation and see if we end up with the right answer. This is close to 20, so I approximate this as 20. So 20 into 10 to the power of minus 1 the whole square. So 20 square is 400. This will be 10 power minus 1 into 2 is 10 power minus 2. Let's assume this to be 400 into 10 to the power of minus 2 Newton. Now you need to find out how much is FCA multiplied by FCB, right? 20 into 20 again, right? It was 20 into 10 to the power of minus 1 whole square. Both are equal. So that is also equal to 400 into 10 to the power of minus 2. So what was your expression for F net? The net force experienced by C, by the charge at C, it was square root of FCA whole square, which is 400 into 10 power minus 2 plus you have 400 into 10 power minus 2 minus, because you had cos theta was minus half, 2 into FCA into FCB, minus half and 2 gets cancelled, you remain with FCA into FCB, which again we have found to be 400 into 10 power minus 2. So it is very simple to actually calculate it. Now just see everything what you could take from here, what gets cancelled. So one of these get cancelled. So you approximately have this 400 can be 400 into 10 power minus 2, right? So 400 can be written as square root of 4 into 10 power plus 2, and then you have minus 2, so this gets cancelled. It is root 4. Approximately 2 Newton is the answer. So anything that is close to 2 Newton will be your answer. This is not close to 2 Newton. 1.8 is the one which is very close to 2 Newton. So this is to be the answer. If you had taken exact square of 18, which is 324, you would still end up with 1.8. Since it is an entrance exam solving numerical, I made approximations. So the closest answer definitely will be your answer. So the answer is 1.8. So this is how you do approximations and save time. So this is a numerical on charge redistribution which we have done from the textbook numerical. Even in one of our series on entrance examination solving part 1 or part 2, if I don't clearly remember it. But certainly this is a very interesting numerical of the same thing. You will see how you have really understood the concept of charge redistribution. Let's check it out. So there are two identical spheres A and B with a charge Q placed at a particular distance from each other and repel each other with a force F. Let's write that. So there are two spheres A and B, okay? They are separated by a certain distance. This is the distance of separation. Their charge on each is Q, okay? Now the force experienced due, the force between them is F. Now you bring another neutral sphere. So there is no charge on the sphere. So there is sphere C where the charge on it is 0. Okay. Now it is brought in contact with sphere A. Okay. Let's bring it in contact with sphere A. So what will happen? This is Q0 whereas this is Q. What will be the net charge? The net charge will be Q net will be Q plus 0, Q on A and 0 on C. So the total charge is Q. Okay, that is what happens. Now, are they separated? Now, neutral sphere C is brought in contact with sphere A and then with sphere B. Oh. Okay, now when you have to bring it in contact with sphere B, you have to separate these spheres. So, when you separate these spheres, there is going to be a charge redistribution. So, charge on A is no more just Q. Charge on A and charge on C get distributed equally. So Q was the net charge on the total system, right? The entire system had a charge Q. Now when you separate them, the sphere which had no charge initially, which is the sphere C, will get some charge from A. That is equal distribution happens. How does equal distribution happen? The total charge on the system of two spheres was Q. Equal distribution, it gets divided into 2. So what is the charge on C now? The charge on C is Q by 2. Similarly, the charge on A is also Q by 2. Now, where are you bringing this closer to? You are bringing this charge C, which has a charge of Q by 2, to charge B, which already has a charge Q. Now, when you bring them together, what will be the total charge on this system? So, the net charge on the system will be Q by 2 plus Q. So, Q by 2 plus Q. You have nothing, which means you have 1. So, the LCM is 2. So, if you have the LCM, I have showed you the simplification. You take the 1 in the denominator, multiply this whole thing into Q by 2. 2 and 2 gets cancelled. So, what remains is Q. Similarly, you have 2 into Q divided by 1. So, it is 2Q. Q plus 2Q, that is the total charge on that system of the two spheres is 3Q by 2. So, what is the total charge on this entire sphere now? It is 3Q by 2. Now, if you separate them, then that gets halved again. There will be equal redistribution. I hope you figure it out. If not, I will reveal it. So, let's rewrite everything again. So, now what are the charges? What are the charges after contact? Charge on A was found to be Q by 2. Charge on C. Now, what had happened to charge on C? So, it is Q by 2. You brought in contact sphere B, which had a charge Q. So, this was the net charge on this became 3Q by 2, right? So, the net charge on this entire system. Now, what happens if you separate them? You separate C and separate B. Now, what will be the charge on each? It gets equally halved. So, how do you halve it? So, it will be 3Q by 2 whole divided by 2. What will happen to 3Q by 2 whole divided by 2? So, this gets reversed. It's go to the numerator. It gets inverted. It will become 1 divided by 2. So, this has to be 3Q divided by 4. So, the charge on B is now 3Q divided by 4. The charge on A was Q divided by 2. So, these are the charges. So, let's write the charges. On A, it is Q divided by 2. On B, it is now 3Q divided by 4. What is it on C? C also it is 3q divided by 4. What are we supposed to find out? We are supposed to find out the new force between A and B. Now we know the new charges. We know the distance of separation. It is easy to figure out. Well, I hope you are able to figure out. So the new charge, which we call the F dash, will now be K into what is the charge on A? Charge on A is Q by 2. What is the charge on B? It is 3Q divided by 4 whole divided by R square. So let's simplify this. This will be K into, so 3Q square whole divided by 2 times 4 is 8 whole divided by R square. Let's rearrange this. We can write it as 3 divided by 8 into K Q square whole divided by R square. So what was KQ square by R square? It was the initial force. So 3/8 of the initial force is your answer, and we have the answer as option D. It's as simple. If you do not know how I rearranged, I just brought 3 by 8 here. You have R square by 1. So it is 3 by 8 KQ square. This becomes 1 divided by R square. So you have R square still in the numerator. I group them together and you have 3 by 8. KQ square by R square. Initial charge on A and charge on B was just Q, and Q they were separated by distance R. So it was KQ square divided by R square, which was nothing but F. So it is very simple. You only need to understand the concepts really well and a bit of mathematics, LCM and decimals and approximation. Well, I hope you are able to solve it. If not, here's the reveal. So F1 between charges 1q and 9q, K into charge 1 coulomb into charge 9q whole divided by the distance square. We have assumed the distance to be in x, so it will be x square. Similarly, F2, which is between 1 coulomb and minus 16q, so therefore it has to be K into 1 into 16q whole divided by your, what is the distance between 1 coulomb and 16 coulomb? It is x plus 1 the whole square. So it has to be x plus 1 the whole square. For equilibrium, F1 has to be equal to F2, right? F1 is equal to F2, which is nothing but, let's equate K into, let's equate the right hand side. K into 1, nothing but 1. So K into 9Q whole divided by x square whole is equal to K into 1 is 1. So it is, K 16Q whole divided by x plus the 1 whole square. So K, Q, Q gets cancelled. What do you have? You have 9 divided by x square is equal to 16 divided by x plus 1 the whole square. Let's take the square root of it, right? So this will be root of 9 can be written as 3 square whole divided by x square is equal to 16 can be written as 4 square whole divided by x plus 1 the whole square. So square, square, root gets cancelled. What are you left with? I'm not sure if you can see below, so I'll erase this part and do it. Yep, so let's simplify. It has to be 3 divided by x is equal to 4 divided by x plus 1. So cross multiply on either side. This becomes 3x. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. 3x plus 3 is equal to 4 times x is 4x. So you have 4x. I'm sending this 3x here. So it becomes minus. This is going to go to 3. So x is basically 3 meter from left of charge 9q. So what's your answer? Do we have that option? Yes. See, option A is the right answer. So this is how you conceptually understand it. Read the question well and you can solve it in a couple of seconds and save time. Well, here is another very, very interesting conceptual numerical. Let's solve it. According to the given diagram, charge minus q should be displaced. Find its direction of displacement. Okay, first let's understand the diagram. They want charge minus q. This is minus q. They want this to be displayed. What is the given scenario? So charge minus q is placed at a distance of a from charge plus q, again at a distance of a from charge plus q on either side. So it basically the midpoint of the line joining the two charges. So these are two like charges. So what will happen? Minus q will experience an attraction due to this, and it will experience an equal attraction due to the other charge. Both the forces, force on this charge, if I call it as O, force on the charge at O due to A is equal to force on the charge at force on the charge O at due to B but in the negative direction. They are equal and opposite. So the net force on this charge would be 0 at this point O. So the net force at the point O on charge minus Q is equal to 0. So it will stay in a state of equilibrium. Now they want you to figure out, they want you to keep this charge on such a place where it would get displaced due to these two charges, where such a thing can happen. Let's see. Now since they have a perpendicular bisector and since they have a point C, let me keep it along at the point minus C. So what will happen if I keep this charge here? It will experience some attraction in this direction. It will experience some attraction due to this charge in this direction. So the net resultant force, complete the parallelogram. So the net resultant force will act along this direction. If this is D, okay, this must be D. They called it D, I called it O, sorry. So this is D. Charge at D, sorry. So where will be the net displacement? Along CD in the down, along C or D. So this is the right answer. It will experience some displacement in the downward direction only when you place it at the point C. As simple as that. It hardly requires a couple of minutes. If you have solved such numericals earlier, then it becomes really easy. Well, it's time to take a numerical on surface charge density before we end the class. A couple of problems on surface charge density. What does it say? A charge would be required. What charge would be required to electrify a sphere? So they want you to electrify a sphere of radius 25 centimeters. So which means here, since we are doing surface charge density, you should know the area of the sphere. If you do not know, you cannot solve this numerical. So as to get a surface charge density of 3 by 5 centimeter per centimeter square. So you have to, they want you to get a surface charge density of so much, and here are your options. So you should know surface charge density, which is denoted by sigma, is given by what? So you have to know the formula. I'll give you a while pause for you to think and then reveal the answer. I hope you are able to figure it out, as given by Q divided by ds, which is the surface area. So Q divided by surface area of a sphere is given by 4 pi r square. You need to find out the charge. So charge is question mark. So Q, you cross multiply here, it becomes 4 pi r square sigma. Sigma is given to be 3 by pi, which is mentioned. So let's keep 4 pi as such. I'll tell you why. Radius is 25 centimeters. 25 centimeter is 25 into 10 to the power of minus 2 meter, the whole square. And sigma is given to be 3 divided by pi. So pi and pi will get cancelled. Hence, I left it as such. So you have 4 into 3 is 12. 12 into 25 into 25 into 10 to the power of minus 2. So simplify, find the answer. I hope you are able to simplify it. If not, here's the reveal. See, instead of doing it like this, let's simplify it easily. So let's write 4 into 25. You have another 25. Let's leave it as such. 4 into 25 will be 100. And 10 to the power of 2, the whole square is 10 power minus 4 into 3. So 25 into 3 is 75. So 100 into 4 times 25 is 100. 25 times 3 is 75 into 10 to the power of minus 4. So what do you have? You have 75 into 100 can be written as 10 power 2 multiplied by 10 power minus 4. So 10 power minus 4 plus 2 is 75 into 10 to the power of minus 2. So which means 75 divided by 100, and this can be written as 0.75. So what is your right answer? This is 0.75 coulomb is the right answer. Well, here's a very interesting numerical that you generally come across in entrance examinations on surface charge density, also in annual examinations, board examinations. So let's see it. 64 drops of radius. So how many drops? 64 drops of radius. Radius is mentioned. The drop of each the radius of each drop is mentioned, and each carrying a charge of, so there are how many drops? There are about 64 drops. And what is the charge each one carries? Each one carries a charge of 5 microcoulomb. They combine together to form a big drop, one single big drop. Okay. So how many drops are there inside? 64 drops, each carrying a charge of 5 microcoulomb. So this is one big drop combined together with the 64 drops, each carrying 5 microcoulomb charge. So you see the volume is conserved, none of the charge is lost, everything is conserved, all the charges are all the charges and even all the drops are combined together to form one big drop. Nothing is lost. Volume conservation, charge conservation, both are happening here. Are combined to form one bigger drop, as I said. Find the surface charge density of electrification. Find if the surface, there should be if. Find if the surface charge density of electrification will change if no charge is lost. Okay, if is here, if no charge is lost, that's what they're saying. We have to assume nothing is lost. All the 64 drops have combined to form one big drop as shown here. Okay, now let's first find out the radius of this big drop. We know the radius of each small drop, but we do not know the radius of the big drop. So what we will do is volume of each drop, right? So volume of each drop, since it is assumed to be a sphere, we know the radius of the volume is given by 4 by 3 pi r cube. Okay, so that is 4 divided by 3 pi r cube is radius of each drop is 0.02 the whole cube. So what will be the volume of 64 drops? So that will again be 4 by 3 pi r cube multiplied by 64. So that is nothing but 4 divided by 3 pi r cube is 0.02 the whole cube multiplied by 64, right? Now from this, let's figure out what is the radius of the bigger drop. I hope you are able to figure out. If not, the radius of the bigger, let capital R be the radius of big drop, okay? The big drop formed out of 64 drops. So what will be the volume of that bigger drop then? 4 by 3 pi r cube. But how much is this equal to? This is equal to the volume of all the 64 drops. So we can equate these two. Let's equate it. This is nothing but volume of 64 drops, that is 4 by 3 pi 0.02 the whole cube multiplied by 64. 4 by 3 pi gets cancelled. What are you left with? You are left with r cube is equal to 0.02 the whole cube multiplied by 64. 64 can be written as 4 cube. So if you take cube root everywhere, it will be r is equal to 2. 0.02. If I want to shift the decimal point to the right, this will be, first let me remove the cube. So this will be 0.02 multiplied by 4, because I have taken cube root on both LHS and RHS. Cube root and cube gets cancelled. We are left with r is equal to 0.02 into 4, which is nothing but 0.08 meter. So combined together, when you combine 64 drops together, the big drop that is formed due to 64 drops will have a radius of 0.08 meter. Now, how will you proceed further? I'll give you a pause and reveal the answer. Well, now it's time to calculate the surface charge density. What is the formula for surface charge density? Q divided by the surface area. Surface area for a sphere is 4 pi r square, right? But how much is Q? Q is given to be 5 microcoulomb. So what is the surface charge density of the small sphere? Small sphere, let's call it a sigma 1. It will be Q, which is 5 microcoulomb, 5 into 10 power minus 6 whole divided by the surface area, 4 into pi into, what is the radius of that? It is 0.02 the whole square, right? Now, what is it for sigma 2, the bigger drop? The bigger drop also has a charge. Each charge has 5 microcoulomb, but how many drops are there? You have to multiply with those many number of drops. So 64 drops, each drop carrying a charge of 5 microcoulomb divided by 4 pi r square. 4 into pi into, what was the radius of this sphere big drop which we calculated? It turned out to be 0.08 whole square. Now we need the ratio of sigma 1 divided by sigma 2. I will let you do the simplification. I will first write it. So 5 into 10 power minus 6 whole divided by 4 pi into 0.02 the whole square whole divided by 5 into 10 to the power of minus 6 whole divided by 4 pi into 0.08 the whole square. So this will, if you bring it to the numerator, this part gets inverted. So it will be 5 into 10 to the power of minus 6 whole divided by 4 pi into 0.02 the whole square multiplied by 5 into 10 power minus 6 now comes in the denominator, multiplied by 64 also comes in the denominator. So this is 10 power minus 6. So this goes in the numerator, which is 4 pi into 0.08 the whole square. 4 pi, 5 into 10 power minus 6, 5 into 10 power minus 6 gets cancelled. Rest is simple simplification and you'll end up with the answer. I'll give you a pause and reveal the answer. Well, now here's the simplification. This will be 0.08 can be written as 8 into 10 to the power of minus 2 the whole square. So I will write it twice. So therefore, similarly, 0.02 in the denominator can be written as 2 into 10 to the power of minus 2. We have done the simplification earlier also, multiplied by 64. So 10 power minus 2, 10 power minus 2, 10 power minus 2, 10 power minus 2 gets cancelled. 2 times 1, 2 times 4, 2 times 1, 2 times 4. So you have 16 divided by 64, 16 times 1 and 16 times 4. So the answer is 1 by 4, or in other words, sigma 1 by sigma 2 is of the ratio of 1:4, and option A is the right answer. So this is how you approach these kind of surface density problems. We will take more numericals on this from the textbook when we do surface charge density numericals. Till then, like, follow and subscribe to Kalike, and if you take care of electrostatics, electrostatics will take care of you.